Welcome to Don't Retire, Graduate, the podcast that asks you what you want to be when you grow up so you can graduate into retirement with purpose and with passion. I'm your host and valedictorian, Eric Brotman, and we're nearing the end of Season 6. We're bringing you interviews with amazing guests every other Thursday, and on alternating weeks, we're hosting a segment called Diary of a Financial Advisor, which we know you'll all enjoy. So please subscribe and check out our all-new episodes every Thursday. Today, I'm pleased to be joined by Meredith Mears. Meredith serves as co-chair of the SVN National Self-Storage Product Council and as senior advisor for SVN Miller Commercial Real Estate, focusing on the sale and leasing of industrial and office assets and specializing in the purchase and sale of self-storage facilities. She's worked with a client base that includes equity fund operators, real estate investment trusts, private owners, and investors across the globe. Meredith, welcome to Don't Retire, Graduate.
Thank you, Eric. It's great to be here.
You know, I know you as Mary more than Meredith. I hope it's okay if I call you that because my wife's name is Meredith. And when I say Meredith, now I'm thinking about something completely different and I want to stay lasered in on our conversation. Is that all right?
Absolutely. Yes. Call me Mary. Absolutely.
All right. I shall. Thank you for that. And I'd be remiss in starting the show if I didn't acknowledge that your office renovations that include that incredible wallpaper behind you are not what we expected this morning, but I think everyone's looking at it anyway, so we just thought we'd throw that out there.
We can't not address it. Typically this is my home office. I have had some office renovations this year. I needed to shake it up a little bit, and typically I have a screen behind me, but I don't this morning, and I'm happy to debut this on your podcast so everyone can see it.
I mean, there's birds and there's other animals, and I don't want to digress completely, but I am staring at your wallpaper. So very cool. Mary, why don't we start with a little bit about you and a little bit about your story, sort of professionally, and then we'll dive into some personal stuff too.
Great. So just in the theme of the wallpaper, it's been a jungle. I grew up on the Virginia's Eastern Shore, right? So that's a very rural area on the coast of Virginia. Not a ton of people, not a ton of opportunity. And I always knew as a little girl that I was probably not going to be there as an adult. And as I grew up, I really got interested in business and finance and the economy and real estate kind of in the back of my mind. I didn't talk about that a lot with people because I didn't have anyone to talk to about it. I had no real role models for it. But I ended up going to school at Salisbury University on Maryland's Eastern Shore, moving to Maryland's Eastern Shore, starting my family. I came out of college, got into workforce development and economic development on the public sector side. Always wanted to get into, real estate and commercial development. And I finally had that opportunity to really dive in back in 2018 and have been on a roll ever since. So have been having a lot of fun, and it is a true jungle out there, but in the very best way.
So there's lots of different paths to building personal wealth, family wealth, community wealth. Real estate is certainly one of them. And it's something we've talked about on the show over the years. Some people want to dabble, which I usually poo-poo a little bit because dabbling in anything is a little scary. Some people want that to be their first passion, which I think if for people who want to make a living doing that, it makes a ton of sense. But when you start talking about wealth, you can't not talk about liquidity versus illiquidity. And with real estate, any purchase of real estate, I would think, barring the conversation about the house flippers in 06 and 07, which is an era we can, I think, forget. But generally, it's a very long-term investment. It's bricks and mortar, literally. It's a long-term hold. And you're doing a lot of times you're doing this for income as opposed to, but sometimes in addition to appreciation. So can you talk a little bit about how real estate plays a role in generating wealth for families and for investors and for others?
Yeah. So if there's one thing that I have learned, real estate is a long-term hold. There's a saying that says, you what is the saying? Now I'm losing it. You'll have to edit this out. But basically,
or maybe not. Maybe we'll leave it in.
Or maybe not. Yeah. It's you get rich or you die trying, right? And so that's the saying. But it's a long-term hold. The role that it.
I think that's a 50 Cent album. Actually,
I think you're right.
So.
I didn't know you listened to my friend 50 Cent.
Well, listen, I don't. I'm just, a plethora of trivia.
I love it.
That is, in fact, Get Rich or Die Trying.
I love that guy.
All right, let's focus. Get Rich or Die Trying, not the 50 Cent album, but in fact, the saying regarding wealth building. Let's go there.
And how slow it happens. That's the point, right? So, if you are able to be liquid enough to purchase a commercial property and successful enough in your endeavor to do it, over time, you build wealth. That's the story. That's the secret to real estate. Coming into real estate, buying something at a really low cost, flipping it and selling it. That has worked for some people over time. But in my experience, you buy, you hold, unless you have an offer you cannot refuse to sell. And that has happened to me once. And so it made sense to sell, and I rolled it into something else.
But can you say an offer you can't refuse in the tone of The Godfather? Can you do that for me just once?
It was an offer you can't refuse.
Very well done. Very well done. So for real estate investors, most of the time what you're looking for is you're looking to increase cap rates. You're looking to increase income over time. You're looking to have the property hopefully fully rented and occupied and have rent escalations in your tenant clauses and hopefully longer term tenants rather than shorter term ones. So you don't have to spend the time not only identifying new tenants, but reconfiguring the space and doing tenant improvements. What is for a landlord? Because I am not a landlord. I do not own this building.
You certainly sound like one.
But I'm not a landlord. I just have to negotiate with some of them, and certainly we represent some. But having leased real estate space many times, I sort of know that the levers to pull as a tenant a lot of times are the longer term the lease is, the more give back the landlord is prepared to give, because the turnover is what's expensive, right?
Yep. Yeah, I was just having the conversation with a client that was looking for a lease space this morning. It's a school who actually provides autism services, and they, they're a strong tenant, right? And they were looking at a space, and they were saying, well, we're not sure if we want to lease a space for 10 years versus 3 years. And I had the conversation with them, if you're bringing a long-term lease, that the more incentive it is for the landlord to go ahead and work with you on lease rate and build out and lease structure and all those types of things. But on the flip side, as a landlord, I've been in the position to be able to purchase a building and build out the space for a tenant and really work hand in hand to ensure that both of us are in a good way at the end of the day. So there's always gray area in commercial real estate. And that's part of why I love it. There are so many different levers you can work to make a deal come through.
So we just renegotiated our lease here in this space. BFG is going to be in this building a long time here in Lutherville. We love it. And we extended it such that it's now a 10-year lease. And in exchange for that, that's why we're under construction right now. So I was joking that the office today is being painted. So if I get lightheaded in the middle of our interview, obviously let me know. And I thought the wallpaper was my imagination, actually. But we were able to get a phenomenal deal on the improvements by doing a long-term lease. At the same time, we've just leased additional space elsewhere, and I can't disclose any of the details yet because it's not public yet, but it's a 3-year lease, and the landlord almost wanted nothing to do with us. It was extremely difficult to get a 3-year deal, even though we weren't asking for material improvements. it just means they're going to be right back into the throes of this again. We even had to negotiate to get a right of renewal for an additional 3 years, which they weren't sure they wanted to give us, which I thought was at least a layup. But, when you're a small tenant or when you're a short-term tenant, you really don't have a lot of options. So for landlords, they want that long-term. And if you're going to own a building, you want a long-term tenant because that gives you some cash flow certainty. It allows you to refinance if there's a mortgage on the building and all those kinds of things. So let me ask this. How do you feel? And I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm not afraid to. It's my show. I get to do that. How do you feel about owner-occupied real estate?
Oh, I think it's great.
Do you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, well, part of the reason I think it's great is because if I'm a broker in that situation and an owner occupant is looking to purchase a building, they value that building more so than maybe an investor does. Mm-hmm. And so their purchase price is going to be higher. And here's why. They are going to occupy that space and build it out, and it's going to be their home. They intrinsically put a higher value on the building. An investor is going to come in and try to get it for as cheap as they can. They're going to come in, rightfully so, and say, look, there's deferred maintenance. I got to put X, Y, Z in this so that I can't pay this amount of money for it. But for the occupier, it's more valuable of a transaction. They come in, they put more into it, I would say. And that's helpful to the real estate asset in general.
So I want to pivot completely because at the end of the day, not everybody's in the market for commercial real estate. And you could say the same kind of things about personal real estate, that owner occupied is going to take better care than someone who's leasing a townhome or a condo or something to a tenant. But I want to talk about you growing up on the Eastern Shore and your early memories of money. What are what did you learn valuable lessons? Was it something your family talked about? Did you just sort of watch and learn? What did that look like for you?
That's a bit of a Pandora's box, but I can summarize it by saying there were no discussions about money. And there wasn't a heck of a lot of it. And in addition to that, my grandmother and her brother had a big hand in raising me. And guess what? They were immigrants from Germany, from back in the World War II days. So they had just lived through the Depression. And so they had some habits and some ideas about preservation of things, stockpiling items, so that was kind of how I grew up. And I remember thinking, okay, when I grow up, I've got to get myself a good government job. I've got to have a job that pays me benefits, health benefits. And I don't care if I make less because if the job pays my health benefits, that's a good trade-off. And so that was really programmed into my head. My mom worked for the federal government for many, many years. My grandmother was a bookkeeper. My great uncle, who was kind of like a father to me, was a civil engineer. And so he worked for the union. And so it was a very protected mindset with regard to how you go about making money. And I remember feeling like, yeah, I grew up, I went to college, I got the government job, I did all those things. And one day I just kind of stood there and I'm like, but there's more. There's so much more. And how do I get there? And I had no role models that had done it to help me.
So, Mary, did you find that there were opportunities at Salisbury to sort of broaden some of your financial vision, or did you have mentors or folks you could learn from about what was out there?
Yeah, back in those days, I was still looking for that government job, right? So but I interned for a university office called the Business, Economic, and Community Outreach Network, who was headed up by my first and true mentor I still have today, Dr. Memo Derricker. And he actually was very instrumental, whether he knows it or not, in exposing me to a wide variety of people in the community that I met. And it really opened the door for me to go into different positions here in the nonprofit sector, in the public sector, but it also exposed me to those folks in the private sector that were doing commercial real estate deals or building new buildings or doing all those things that in the back of my mind I got really excited about but had no one to talk about. So the short answer is yes. Working there through Salisbury University, because it was an office of Salisbury University, put me in the rooms with people who were doing deals in commercial real estate and providing commercial development services to others. And I got to see a lot of growth in the community as a result of that.
Well, first of all, I did not know you were part of Beacon. I'm very familiar with Beacon, and Memo's a dear friend. And, in fact, I don't want you to date yourself. That would be unfair. But Beacon's been around for like 30 years, right? It's not older than that.
I'm telling you, I'll date myself. That was from 99 to 01. I graduated in 01.
Got it. Okay. So from 99 to 01, you were there. Do you know that when Beacon developed their, I think it was their Bright Beacon Award or some kind of award for the community, that I believe I was the first one to receive that and got to speak to the folks at Salisbury. And I have on my shelf it was called Leading Beacon, the Leading Beacon Award. And I still treasure that because it was such a fond memory. I got to speak to the dean and all the folks at Salisbury, and Memo was very, very kind, and we got to know each other pretty well. And then he was also the person I named as vice chair when I was chairman of Leadership Maryland. So, this town is so Kevin Bacon. We all do, in fact, know each other. So, well, I love that you had that. I love that you had that exposure, because one thing Beacon does do is it does bring the business community, particularly within the radius of Salisbury and the state. It does bring it to student interns and other young people who can really do incredible analysis and create incredible reporting. So, kudos to you for taking that gig. That's a good job in college, a really good job in college.
It was great and so educational and so beneficial long term. And congratulations to you for receiving that award. That's pretty
How cool
incredible.
Is that? Well, it was a complete surprise, but someday we'll talk about that. I'll share my story with you. But so then you leave university. Did you go the government route first? That was your first. You were in economic development for the state.
Yep. Well, so I left and I went into workforce development. I detested that. Workforce development's great. Workforce development, you take public funds and you design programs and monitor programs and make sure these programs are providing outputs in terms of people being positioned to be placed in jobs. They have skills now, right? And so you work with the local community colleges and nonprofits, and you make sure that, these things are happening in your community. It's not that I didn't see the value in that, but for me, there was nothing tangible. And I, in the back of my mind, wanted to see tangible results. I wanted to touch what I was working on. And then I went into economic development shortly after that. And of course, economic development, you're, working with small businesses. It was closer to entrepreneurship and the business community than I had ever been. And, I started off as actually a deputy director of economic development in Worcester County, Maryland, had a great mentor there named Bill Badger. And when it was time for him to retire, I was then hired as the director there. And I at that time, I was there for a couple years. I entered the Leadership Maryland program towards the end. And I really got to a point where I'm like, okay, I've kind of topped out in this. And I still have this yearning to have tangible outputs. And so what else is there for me? And that's when I jumped.
So growing up and through school and into your first two levels of employment, I'm hearing two trends. One, a bit of a scarcity mentality. And two, your ability to identify terrific mentors. So, moving from a scarcity to an abundance mentality is not an easy thing. It's not natural. We're not always taught to do that. And mentors can help. Did you continue on this journey with that abundance mindset? And did you identify additional mentors along the way who helped make that happen?
I don't know that I understood the abundance mindset until 2018, 2019, really, when I jumped. And that was kind of forced, right? And I don't know that I, back in those days, was seeking out mentors or saying, hey, that's really somebody that I think I can learn from. I was very, very blessed in that somehow these people saw me and cared enough to talk to me or to guide me or to say things that needed to be said to me about, you can improve in this way, or let me introduce you to this person, just including me, which, doesn't happen a lot. But, even after I jumped, I've had to purposefully find mentors, and I've continued to do that. They're few and far between, especially as you get older, because, there's fewer people still working at the level that you're trying to reach as you get older. And I've learned that. But when you find a good connection with someone, you got to hold on to it. And so I found others, even after I jumped.
So commercial real estate you've called it a jungle. Am I correct that commercial real estate is another, like financial advising, pretty male-dominated field? Was it hard to find people, mentors and folks who were strong women in the field? I know there certainly are many, but it's a really male-centric field, right?
Yeah. And, just full disclosure, I've always worked in a male-dominated field. I somehow felt more comfortable in it. Especially when I was younger, I felt like, okay, I see these men who are really successful doing things that I think I can probably do one day once I learn some ropes. And, commercial real estate followed suit with that. So my entree into commercial real estate was not brokerage right out the gate. It was development. And so, I left public service and I have a boutique consulting firm that, has a few clients at a time, because we'll work on in-depth projects over long periods of time. And I don't desire to grow that into a huge, huge, huge thing. But my main client was a regional developer, and I learned how to do what they do. From developing pro formas to understanding lease rates as a result of all the inputs in cash and design. I learned some brokerage from them, and when it made sense for that relationship to end, it did. And I rolled into, what was next for me. So, always male dominated, but I have been so fortunate that the men that I have worked with, and there have been, a couple women in self-storage particularly that have really taken me under their wing and just shared. In brokerage, people don't like to share. It's very, to your vest. It's very competitive. So it's few and far between.
So, I feel like I've known you a long time. We've known each other, and gotten to know each other over a long period of time. But what I didn't understand until today, until just this minute, was just how much courage you have. I don't think I realized, well, I'm being serious. I don't think I realized just how much of a jump and a leap of faith you took from something pretty safe to something pretty unsafe. Would you do it all over again?
Yes, 100 times over, 1,000 times over.
Would you have done it sooner if you could talk to your younger self, or was it the right time for you?
I mean, I say no automatically, but I don't know how financially I could have. So, the jump from public to private service. So, when I jumped in 2018, I had a nice contract with one client who I didn't have to take on any other clients. I could just kind of roll with them, learn, and that's what I did. But I also knew in the back of my mind that I better start investing in property, and I better start figuring out the rest of the way. And that's what I did. I could not have invested in my first property in 2018 if I didn't have the savings that I saved up until that age.
Got it. So you're now managing, not only are you doing consulting for big developers, but you're also managing your own portfolio of commercial real estate.
Yes.
Yep. Good for you. That's a lot of work. Sounds like a lot of work.
Fun. It's fun.
You know what? If it's fun, then it won't feel like work, I guess. That's good.
Yes. Yeah. It's definitely, there are some days I want to crawl in a hole and cover myself up, to be completely honest. But the most of the days I'm like, this is fun. Let's do another one.
Well, I can't, first of all, I can't thank you enough for sharing so transparently and so openly. I have to ask you what it is you want to be when you grow up. And I would love, I just have a good feeling about this question today.
When I grow up, first of all, I'm flattered because I felt like I was grown up and kind of like, on the downside. I'm heading towards 50 quickly.
But
cry
me
when
a river.
Grow up,
yeah.
That's what people say. I welcome that. When I grow up, I think I want to be in the position to be able to consistently give and develop property for community services. So, for example, one of my first developments and one of my most prized developments was, I was fortunate enough to invest in a property that was a former dentist's office. And we completely gutted the building, put a new roof on, and got a therapist office in there. And not just any therapist office, but a true community-based therapy office that is well recognized and, a ton of community, people in the community go there. So we were able to actually bring them out from a small office they leased and give them their own space, their own parking lot, and to see the shambles of what was in that building to what it is today and people coming in and out and feeling better. It's those types of things that I would like to continue to do and do more of when I grow up.
I have no doubt you're going to. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. Where can folks who want to learn more about your consulting, more about you, where can they find you online and elsewhere?
So my consulting company is called m3synergies.com. It's M and the number 3synergies.com. And then my brokerage can be found at svnmiller.com. And there is a little tab for advisors, and I'm under there as Meredith Mears, of course.
Of course. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. I knew it would be wonderful to see you and chat with you. I had no idea I'd be doing it from the Amazon, but that was an added benefit. So thanks for doing this, Mary. I appreciate you being here and sharing so much with us today.
Thanks, Eric.
I'd like to thank everyone for listening and watching today. If you enjoy our show, please don't keep it a secret. Share it with friends and family so they can join you on your journey to financial freedom. We'll be back next week with another entry in our Diary of a Financial Advisor series, and in 2 weeks with another engaging guest. For now, this is your host, Eric Brotman, reminding you, don't retire, graduate.
Securities offered through Kestra Investment Services, LLC. Kestra IS. Member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Kestra Advisory Services, LLC. Kestra AS. An affiliate of Kestra IS. Kestra IS or Kestra AS are not affiliated with Brotman Financial or any other entity discussed.